2024 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. Seeing no such notification, I will proceed. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023, signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Our first order of business is to establish our quorum. Mr. Metters.
Present.
Mr. Dyken.
Present.
And Ms. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Schell is present. Mr. Nicastro.
Present.
We have a bit of a lengthy agenda this evening. We have two sets of minutes, public announcements, and agenda requests. We have three public hearings. We have an update on a committee board commission for the Summer Residence Advisory Committee. Then we'll have public comments on the business agenda, but we will invite public comments on item G, which is discussing and allocating responsibility for developing a request for proposals for stepping stones at the time that comes up on the agenda. Otherwise, public comments are invited at the outset. Then the business agenda includes the following: an approval to open the 2024-25 base golf season, considering reduction in membership from 9 to 7 of the members of the Chatham Cultural Council, an update on the new parking ticket software and 2024 parking ticket statistics, a discussion of the 2024 ballot question number 6. We'll hear from Barnstable County Commissioner Ron Bergstrom and Chatham Assembly Delegate Randy Potash. Next is a review of the fiscal year 26 and calendar year 25 Select Board and Town Manager goals and objectives. Next is 2024 annual review of the intermunicipal Nauset Beach Agreement. Next is the item I mentioned previously regarding the Stepping Stones Road property and developing a request for proposals on that property. And next is we have one committee for which we have an appointment, I believe one appointment or two, I'm not sure, but in any event, we'll do appointments to the Railroad Museum Committee, and finally, the Town Manager report. With that, I'll turn to the minutes. We'll start with the minutes of October 15, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any comments, corrections, or other modifications? Mr. Nicastro.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a few. On page 2, near the bottom, in the paragraph that begins, Stephen Buckley Chatham made a request for the task group. I think he was referring to the Public Engagement Advisory Group. So I would substitute that language for the word task. Then on page 9, two-thirds of the way down Mr. Shell's motion, I went and checked the video because this wasn't my recollection. It wasn't a motion to accept the donation. It was a motion, and this is the language I would use, to approve the negotiating position that the Select Board would sign the donation agreement only if amended with appropriate language to protect the town. I believe that's what was offered.
If I may,
it's your motion.
I agree with everything you said, except I thought we had pretty specific language that we wanted to see in the agreement.
Yes, we did.
So I'd like to make that a little more specific, with appropriate language
I don't remember what the language
recited.
was.
Recited.
We can, with the, I'll amend the motion to ask that, to include the language as that was recited.
That's good, that's good.
At the meeting.
Good.
But that was the motion.
Yep.
And then on page 10, right in the middle, the paragraph that begins with my name, third line, the opinion of town council, bond council, and the town's financial advisors, I would like to insert after the word opinion, the phrase of no objection, the opinion of no objection of these various people. And at the end, was reported, after the word advisors, because there's no verb there. And then on page 11, this is the last one, fourth line down, I think I would drop the period in the middle, and I would insert the words "and that." So during the meeting, and that the proposed amendment is not financial policy but more procedural. And then in the third paragraph, first line, second sentence, where it says some members, I think it was just me, so I would be happy if you wanted to just put my name, Mr. Nicastro said. Took issue.
You could say a member.
A member, that's fine, that's better. Those are it,
Okay?
that's it.
I just got a
Yeah,
couple.
go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Buckley, I think is Buckley, unless I'm
Yep,
mistaken.
good. Yep.
Then the top of page 3, the second paragraph that starts 4 active and 11 inactive cemeteries. That's just, it's not a sentence, so I just say the committee is tasked with the maintenance of 4 active and 11 inactive cemeteries. And then in the next paragraph, the average fund for cemeteries is $101,690. I don't, if that average of what? Another towns, or I don't know what, I just forget what the reference was. That's all. So if we can get a reference there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, was that the budget allocation? Jill, do you know? No?
I would just make it, I would just make whatever the.
Well, whatever it
reference
is, yeah.
That's all, because it's up against the 540K in perpetual care. And then Buckley again on page 5. That's it. Thanks.
Anybody else? I just have, I'm sorry,
No, I'm
Shereen? A couple, on page 5, the last paragraph there where it says Town Clerk Smith presented, my recollection was that she was not present and that Kathy presented. I mean, it was her material, but, or we could probably, either way. And then the only other thing, I think that's it. I'm good. So, forgive me, that isn't it. On page 14, the comment that at the end of the top paragraph is, the comment was made more or less as stated, but I think it deserves some flavor of what I had to say in that meeting, more or less in reply to that. And I would like to add the following paragraph as a new paragraph between the two paragraphs at the top of the page, as follows. The following views were also expressed, and by the way, I took this from the tape. Following views were also expressed. Board members are here to do the best job they can, to make the best decisions they can, and to make the best living conditions they can fashion for the town of Chatham, whom they represent. That is their fiduciary duty as Select Board members, and that is the fiduciary duty of members of the Affordable Housing Trust Board, as well as the members of every committee in this town. There is no conflict. Board and committee members are just working in different territory with respect to different problems and different issues, all for the benefit of the town. The job is always to get the best possible result for the citizens of Chatham, whatever the particular role or committee of the individual member. And Kathy has that from me. So with that, I'll invite, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
And then we go to the minutes of October 22.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in, comments? Dean?
Yeah. Page 4, under number 3, second paragraph that begins hotel motel taxes, in the very last line, it's not the Affordable Housing Trust, it's attainable housing, that 1%. And then on page 5, I would just add, second to last paragraph, this sentence: the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee is expected to review and make a recommendation. Page 8, under debt service, item 6, the final paragraph, second line, there is a 1.5% tax. It's really a surtax. Under number 7, the paragraph that begins Chair Daniel, in the second line at the end, the word adjuster should be stricken and the word advisor should be added, inserted. And then on page 9, under 8, first paragraph, last line, other members of the board felt that a joint meeting would not be advisable, comma, and I would insert this, and that other members was me, so you could say a member of the board, because the select board review is at a high level, while the FinCom takes a line item approach, period. Those are my corrections.
So participating from the Finance Committee, Kristen Andrews was not present.
Yeah, I didn't think she was.
Therefore, page 9,
She was
she did
online.
not make the motion to adjourn. I don't recall.
Well, you know, when Stephen took the role, the only person he said was missing was Tommy Dones.
Yes, he did say that.
Well, okay, she wasn't at the dais, but I think it was Tracy that made the motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Okay,
she might have been online.
all right, my mistake.
No, I didn't see her either.
Anybody else? I just have a question with regard, on page 3, at the last paragraph, the available funding sources, these items included, I didn't check the tape, but I just was curious, should not or was free cash included in that list? Or should it not be?
Where are you, Mike? Sorry.
Bottom of page 3, last sentence, available funding sources, the town's revenues were reviewed. These items included the tax levy, local receipts, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll have to look at the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure she got into free cash at that moment.
Okay.
Or if it was later on.
Okay,
but
well,
if it was, we'll make that
whatever's accurate is fine with me. And then, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm fine with your change, Dean. So with that, we'll take a roll call. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
And Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
That takes care of the minutes. Public announcements and agenda requests. I've been asked to make a number of announcements here, so let me get through those quickly. Number 1, Real estate taxes are due 4 p.m. Friday, November 1st, 2024. That is this Friday. There is a drop box located in the entrance to 549 Main Street where they can be dropped off if you cannot make it in during the regular business hours. And I assume that if something were dropped in after 4 o'clock, it would qualify, or no, you clear the decks at 4 o'clock, and anything after that is late. Okay, good clarification, thank you. The last day for early in-person voting is Friday, November 1st. Again, this Friday, early voting can be done at the town clerk's office at 549 Main Street from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Next, don't forget to set your clocks back 1 hour before you go to bed on Saturday, November 2. That, again, this Saturday. Daylight savings time ends at 2 a.m. on Sunday, November 3, 2024. Next, Election Day is Tuesday, I think it's November 5. Polls are located at the Chatham Community Center and are open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. And last, the Veterans Day ceremony will be held on Monday, November 11, 2024, at 11 a.m. at the Chatham Community Center. And finally, maybe a fun fact, today is the 95th anniversary of Black Tuesday on the New York Stock Exchange, also known as the crash. Public hearings. Sorry, we got to offer the opportunity for other announcements and agenda requests. Shireen,
It's my understanding we're not having a select board meeting next Tuesday.
that is correct.
Okay.
Any other from the board? Anything from the public? I don't see anybody. So now I can move to public hearings. Can I invite the clerk to read the first notice of public hearing?
Sure. Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing Notice. The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing at 5:30 on Tuesday, October 29, 2024, to consider a petition from NStar Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, to install 250-foot plus or minus 2 4-inch conduit in the right-of-way of Training Field Road, Chatham, to provide new underground service for a new building at 114 Training Field Road. The public is welcome to attend the meeting in person or participate via link in the meeting's agenda. All interested parties are encouraged to participate. Sign the select board.
So do we have either Ms. Marissa Jackson or somebody else presenting for Eversource? Looks like we do. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Marissa Jackson with Eversource, the Rights and Permits Department. So what we're proposing this evening is the install of 200 feet, approximately, of 2 4-inch conduit. This will be along Training Field Road. And the purpose of this construction is to accommodate, as previously stated, a new building located at 114 Training Field Road. And that being said, I'd be more than happy to address any questions if there are any.
So I'll invite anything from the public before I go to the board. I don't see anybody. Dean?
Yeah, I just wanted to call your attention to a typo in the form of order. In the first, I guess it's the second full paragraph, it refers to the petition being dated the 20th day of September, but the petition is actually dated October 2nd, so you might want to change that before it's signed.
Okay, was it September 20th?
It says September 20th, but the actual date of the petition that's included in the packet is October 2nd.
Well, thank you for bringing to my attention. I'll make sure to address that tomorrow and send that over corrected.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else? I think then it's appropriate to take a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Next case, please.
Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing Notice. The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing at 5:30 PM on Tuesday, October 29th, 2024, to consider a petition from NSTAR Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy to install 35-foot plus or minus 1 3-inch conduit under Capri Lane to provide new underground service to 35 Capri Lane. The public is welcome to attend the meeting in person or participate via link in the meeting's posted agenda. All interested parties are encouraged to participate. Sign the Select Board.
Again, go ahead, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. Yes, this was a customer request we received. They'd like to bring their overhead service now underground, excuse me, which we can most certainly do. But in order to accommodate that, we would have to utilize the existing pole, which is 213/3, place a handhole at the bottom of that pole and run approximately 35 feet under the road of Capri Lane and make connections at the customer's handhole at 35.
Any questions or comments from the public, the board? Mr. Matters.
Okay, maybe I'm hoping I missed this, or I'm looking at the legend in the chart here. Is everything on here, but it says proposed handheld is the red circle with the cross on it. I don't see this on the map. Existing handhold is there, proposed conduit is marked, existing pole is marked, and then the pole with riser should be a yellow dot, which I don't see on this map either. So there's two things on the legend that I'm not seeing, and I don't know if anyone else, if I'm losing my mind, or is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We don't typically outline the, riser pole. We just show the existing and then the handhole that would be at the bottom of that pole, running the conduit across the roadway. And then, we're not showing the customer's handhole, but that would be the pickup point at 35 Capri Lane.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's a change from previous practice, but I'm not going to make a fuss over it.
Okay,
Move approval?
do I hear a second? Mr. Nacastro,
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Matters?
Aye.
And then we have one last public hearing notice. Madam?
Yes. Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing. The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the large meeting room at Town Offices, 261 George Ryder Road, to consider the following: extension of no parking zone from the corner of Claflin Landing east past the second driveway of the Hawthorne Hotel at 196 Shore Road. Installation of a W1/4R curve sign with an advisory 20-mile-per-hour plaque affixed on the eastbound side of Fox Hill Road. Installation of 2 new stop signs at the intersection of Barcliff Ave and Old Harbor Road on opposite corners of the existing signs. The signs are of standard size and style and recommended to the board by the Traffic Safety Committee. All interested parties are encouraged to participate in person and remotely via the link in the posted agenda. Sign the Select Board.
And we have Ms. Joan Craig, Chair of the Traffic and Safety Committee, to present.
Thank
Welcome.
you. As you said, Joan Craig, Chair of the Traffic Safety Committee. As noted in your memo from Deputy Chief Malzone, we met on August 22nd and again on September 26th to consider several of these requests. And we reviewed a request from the owner of the Hawthorne Motel at 196 Shore Road, requesting the establishment of a no parking zone on both sides of the driveway accessing the hotel. Vehicles parked in these areas have created sight lines issues, making it difficult for employees and guests to exit the property. The parking in front of the hotel has also narrowed the westbound travel lane significantly. The Traffic Safety Committee recommends extending the no parking zone from the corner of Claflin Landing East past the the second driveway of the Hawthorne Hotel. The specific location of the signs is recommended to be at the discretion of the DPW in accordance with applicable regulations and policies. You'll notate it on the slide here. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I would actually also like to make one other comment. It's not on this note, but our committee is concerned that employees of a certain inn in that area continue to park in that area and go to work. This has been an ongoing issue with our committee. It has been brought to the attention of the administration of that inn, and it has continued. So I think this will certainly alleviate the problem. Where those individuals go will be another issue that I'm sure will come before our committee.
So, questions from the public? Mr. Metters.
No, I mean, the concerns that are addressed in this particular area, I'm in agreement with, and I'll support, and I will be supportive of this. But to your comments, I think we're just pushing some problem around, and I think we're going to have another area in this general area that we're going to have up for review that now cars are parking here. So it may or may not happen. My gut tells me we're just pushing the problem around a little bit more. But for this particular area, I think this is a sensible solution, and I will be supportive of it.
Dean?
Joan, are the, those who are parking there, they parking there all day?
During their employment,
Okay.
that is correct.
When you had your meetings, did you have any input from any of the neighbors or any other neighbors?
No, just from the hotel itself, the
hotel
motel itself.
Okay, so you've received no objections from
No,
anybody?
no objections.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Jeff?
Thank you, Michael. Joan, you're busy. The Traffic Safety Committee has been extremely busy. I will report that the no parking on Seaview Street is being abided by, and I think I see more employees walking from a lot off-site, if you will, along Seaview going to their place of employment. So I think you might see that replicated here should we put no parking signs out. I'm certainly very much in favor of this. Shore Road is very difficult to traverse in the summertime with pedestrian traffic, and so you know I've got great concerns about Shore Road. I walked it after the parade this year and really felt that there was plenty of room for a sidewalk on the west side of Shore Road, God forbid, but there is enough room, God forbid. But anyway, I do support this, and I think you'll see with enforcement that folks will park elsewhere, and they may park where they're supposed to park. So we did see that happen on Seaview. Thanks.
Thank you.
Shereen?
Thank you, and Joan, you've got a difficult job, with this particular area, and we've talked about it. Corey, I agree with you. This is just pushing it. I think, hearing a comprehensive parking, solution is going to be a welcomed addition to what we can do in this area, but I'll approve it as well.
Anybody else? Okay. Do we got to do these separately or individually, or together?
I think we need to do them separately.
Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens? Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Next
Thank you.
case.
Second slide, thank you. Fox Hill Road, the committee reviewed a request from a resident of Fox Hill Road. The resident had concerns of vehicle speed entering the S-curve prior to the Strong Island Road three-way intersection. The resident stated that he had observed numerous vehicles approaching the curves at speeds believed to be greater than reasonable and was concerned for the operators of the vehicles as well as pedestrians. DPW Director Rob Faley surveyed the area, performed a test which indicated that the advised speed for the curves is 20 miles per hour. The committee recommends installation of a W1 4R curb sign, which I have a picture of if you don't, with an advisory 20-mile-per-hour plaque affixed. The sign would be placed on eastbound side of Fox Hill Road by the DPW in accordance with applicable regulation and policy. And I can show it to you. I'd like it back. It's the one in the center that I've marked in red. Thank you. One of the concerns expressed, and we've all witnessed it when we've driven down these areas, is pedestrians walking 2 and 3 abreast, sometimes with carriages, et cetera. I don't think some of them realize the danger that they have. I do know in a previous conversation with you and with our committee, there is a group that is looking into maybe putting together a pamphlet of sorts with regards to sharing the road, pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars and landscapers. So hopefully that will be coming back to someone soon, sometime between now and next summer, just as an FYI.
Okay, thank you. Take a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next.
Lastly is Barcliff Avenue and Old Harbor Road. The committee reviewed a request for installation of blinking red stop signs on both sides of Barcliff Avenue on Old Harbor Road. The Barcliff Avenue and Old Harbor Road intersection has been the location of several motor vehicle crashes, with one crash as recent as September of '24. A significant number of the crashes have been caused by motor vehicle operators failing to stop at the stop signs. The committee recommends the installation of 2 additional stop signs with reflective tape on the poles. The additional stop signs would be placed on the opposite corners of the existing signs. So, in fact, what's happening is when you stop on Barcliff, you're going to have 2 stop signs, one on either side of the street, going from Barcliff to Barcliff. We have concerns about that area. Unfortunately, we're also looking at MassDOT issues because that is a public road on Old Harbor. We continue to have concerns. There were individuals there, including the woman on the, I think it's 150 in that, I can't tell. The accident, and the individual hit a car, and the car actually went into the home. And if you go by, you'll see the damage even today. That homeowner came to our meeting, was very concerned and very emotional, and we understand that. It's a very dangerous area. We also have concerns that the new home on the corner of Barcliff has very, very high bushes in the front, and the home across the street from it also has older but tall bushes. So the other day I went, and you really have to get your nose of the car out quite a distance before you can see either way on coming into Old Harbor. So it is a hazard that we're concerned about. I just bring that to your attention, too.
Questions from the public? Yes, sir.
Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. Are these the same blinking stop signs that we installed over on, what is it, Old Queen Anne?
No, they will not be blinking stop signs. They will be stop signs.
So there's no
Specific stop signs, and then the pole will have reflective tape.
So is there stop signs there now?
These are new stop signs. As you can see, and I'll show you right here, there is a stop sign here. We're putting another one on the other side of the same street on both areas of Barcliff. So as you're coming out of Barcliff, you will see 2 stop signs, one on the right and one on the left.
And this through traffic is still going to be,
Through traffic is a state road. We have no authority over that.
so why would you put these signs here?
Our hope is that it will add additional information, visual information to traffic coming to and from Barcliff.
So are you basing this off of this one accident that just happened?
This has been an ongoing issue.
So do you,
Speak to this gentleman
Deputy Chief, do you want to add something?
Please. Good evening, Lou Malzone, Deputy Chief Police. The initial request was for blinking stop signs. Excuse me. It being a state roadway, state layout, DPW Director Faley referred to this as gated stop signs, bringing more visibility. I looked at our data. Over the last 5 years, we've had 5 significant accidents that were all caused by people failing to stop at the stop signs on both sides of Barcliff. So the idea was to do these gated stop signs, bring higher visibility, and not have to put the flashing red lights in, and some reflective tape on the poles to bring more awareness to those stops.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, do you have any other?
Two questions. So failure to stop at the stop signs
Can you
was,
use the microphone?
sorry, the failure to stop at the stop signs, was there, drinking or drugs or, using cell phone for a reason that they didn't stop, not the stop signs themselves?
In this particular case, the most recent one, it was that Saturday of very, very heavy rain. The gentleman who was in the accident said that he hydroplaned.
I'm not aware of any alcohol or substance related accidents here. We've had some distracted drivers, and we've had some people who haven't seen the stop signs and have gone right through.
Thank you.
So just, how would putting more stop signs help hydroplaning? I don't understand that.
I don't think that adding the stop signs are gonna solve someone hydroplaning, but they're definitely gonna bring more awareness to that area. It is a tough place to cross Old Harbor Road, and I think if there's a sign on each side to catch your attention, it will certainly help.
Thank you. Mr. Metters?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of times these proposals come before us and they get more philosophical. This one is data-driven. I mean, we've had 5 accidents. I didn't realize we had 5 accidents in that span, but I know some significant accidents about there, and these are not blinking lights. These are the stop signs are going to be a step to hopefully protect pedestrians and vehicles traveling in that area. I think there's more benefit to having them than not. So I think it's something we really have to do based on past history in that area. It's not a choice right now. It's something we should do.
Dean?
Thanks. So Chief, these signs are going to be facing all 4 roads, well, there are 2 roads, all 4.
No, just people traveling on Barcliff.
Okay.
So coming up from the Fish Pier, you'll have a sign on your right and a sign on your left.
Yep.
And then coming towards Old Harbor, you'll have one on your right and your left.
So they won't really interfere with the flow of traffic on basically Route 28 because
No.
we don't have authority.
Correct.
My other question, does the town have any authority to regulate the height of these obstructing bushes? I mean, this isn't the only intersection where we have that type of problem. Do we have any authority under law? I mean, this may be even more complicated because you've got a state road involved.
I think there's been some previous discussion and interaction with the homeowners in regards to some of the layout of some of their shrubs that I know DPW Director Faley has more information on. But yeah, there is some mechanisms in place to control those.
Yeah, I just wondered whether there's anything under state law, or do we have anything in our bylaws, or should we have something in our bylaws? There's
Mr.
Mr.
Faley
Faley
is
now.
here. He may have a comment. Rob, do you want to speak to that question?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rob Faley, Director of Public Works. So we did reach out to Mass DOT, not just on this occasion, but previously. And those bushes are not within the highway layout for Mass DOT's right-of-way. So their hands are somewhat tied as well.
I was just wondering if, even assuming they're on private property, whether there was some provision of state law or regulation or local law or regulation or bylaw that gives us the authority to mandate the trimming of bushes when they obstruct the view. It would seem to me there must be something on this. Maybe there's some case law, I don't know. Maybe it's something that we should look into with council.
We can look into it, because as Robert said, it's not within the right-of-way.
Right.
But certainly if it's causing a hazard, we can talk to town council about
It's a
it.
public health issue, I think, so there may be something in the authority of the Board of Health, I don't know. Thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I totally agree with Select Board Member Nacastro. While you were talking, Joan, we traverse that intersection on occasion every weekend, and it is a very difficult intersection. You have to nose out, you have to creep out because of the obstruction of the bushes, to be honest with you. It's hedges, there are a couple of those intersections. They're very difficult to see around. They actually block your visibility. So I would like to see it brought up with town council to see if there's some way. It's moral suasion. If it's not under the control of Mass DOT, then it's, a public safety issue, and we should try to make it one, because they're blocking views that provide, unsafe conditions. People barrel down Old Harbor, and I should say Stage Harbor, Old Harbor, sorry, and you can't see them coming. So I think the two stop signs on both sides of Barcliff are very appropriate. I certainly support it, and I think we ought to remand it back to the town council, ask if there's something we can do. Thanks.
I just would add, maybe something within the police power of the town to regulate private bushes on private property that are obstructing views and presenting
I
as...
don't know the name of the street. I want to say Partridge, but I could be wrong. When you're going towards Harwich on Queen Anne, and the following street on the right is Holmes. In the past, the street that I'm talking about on the left, which is Chatham, whereas Holmes is Harwich. A number of years ago, there is very high shrubbery at the edge of that street, and the complaint came to us a number of years ago. And at that time, the individual homeowner was spoken to, and if you go by now, you'll see it does look a little odd, but it's shrubbery that has been cut and then goes up because of the sight line being at issue. It is also my understanding, and I don't have it in writing, that when this corner house that is used as a rental, quite often a very beautiful home, was being built, the comment was made that the bushes that are on Old Harbor would be 4 feet. And if you go by, you notice that they're a lot higher than 4 feet.
So I'm supportive. I just want to ask the unaskable question, which is in the context of discussing with MassDOT what they might be able to do about the bushes. Did the subject of putting stop signs on Old Harbor Road itself come up? I appreciate that may be a bridge too far, but
Rob would
that
have to
really does
answer
seem
that
to be the
question.
issue. I'm sorry?
Rob would have to answer that question. I don't know.
Rob, are you still with us? I see, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. That subject was not brought up because the bush issue was brought to Mass DOT prior to the stop sign issue being brought to the Traffic and Safety Board.
Well, I'll leave the question asked and leave it at that. But in the meantime, I think this is what we can do that is the max in terms of attempting to reduce the risk, if not eliminate it altogether. So I am supportive. Any other comments?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay. Our next item is a report from the Chair of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee, Mr. Jeff Spalter. I have seen him online. Welcome, Jeff. You have the floor.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk with the Select Board and provide an update on our 2024 activities, especially in light of the agenda that you've got this evening. As Mike mentioned, I'm Jeff Spalter, currently the chair of the SRAC, and excited to talk to you all this evening on behalf of our team. If we go to page 2, which is the agenda, thank you. We have a good agenda this evening, we think, and hopefully we can flow through this at a modest pace. There are not a lot of new issues and no decisions to be made, but we'll look forward to your thoughts and your comments and your guidance. We'll start with a review of our objectives and how we approached identifying and addressing issues relevant to Chatham summer residents. Next, we'll share the results of the 2024 survey, which fed into our work list. I'll then give you an overview of our current year activities and the areas of interest where we invested our time. And we'll share some key takeaways and items for the Select Board and town to consider, and then take a look ahead at later this year and 2025. So if we can move to page 3. Our first task was to align on where we'd like to spend our time and energy, as it's so limited during the summer. We look for issues that are most impactful to the town and important to summer residents, our primary constituency. We identify common issues by conducting a summer resident survey, and Stuart Green did an analysis of the issues most frequently raised in our local papers. We then met with a wide range of town staff and committee leads to gather input and discuss potential issues. Key areas that we monitor have been relatively consistent over time. No surprise, starting with town finances. We also look at the sewer project, affordable and attainable housing, the Center for Active Living, and water-related issues. This year, we decided to focus on the sewer project, and you may recall that that was a key portion of our summer town meeting earlier this year. We're actually on your agenda for November 12th for a more detailed discussion about the sewer project and grinder pumps, so we won't address that topic tonight. We did include a page of issues and challenges related to the sewer project in the backup on slide 13, and we hope to engage you on some of these issues in the months ahead. We also look at new and emerging issues such as short-term rentals, and of course a key objective and one that still requires some work on our part is better communication with the summer residents. We move to slide 4. We wanted to share with you how we approach our work, and it all starts with teamwork. We have a great team with a nice cross-section of work experiences, and we really appreciate the work that the Select Board does to identify and approve summer residents for the team. It's a great group to work with. There's lots of sharing. Everyone's fully engaged, and quite frankly, it's enjoyable time together. We began with a virtual planning meeting back in May, before most of us were here in Chatham, to start the discussion on key issues. We leveraged Stuart's analysis of the local papers with our personal input to set the stage. We then agreed on which town staff and committee members we'd like to visit with to learn more about the issues facing the town and start to get on their calendars. And we very much appreciate Jill and her team helping us to make this happen. And then we blend in the survey results on top of all that. During the June through August period, we have a standing Friday meeting from 9 to 12. Sometimes it feels a lot longer. But we also had to meet midweek on a few occasions this year to progress a number of issues, since we no longer have subcommittees to address specific issues and do some of the detailed research and data gathering that is then typically brought forward to the full team. The open meeting law requirements were just too burdensome for the subcommittees. So while we weren't able to address as many issues without subcommittees, the benefit is that the whole team was able to focus on the key issues in front of us, and we got the benefit of input and perspective from the entire team. Some of the work we did, especially on the sewer project and grinder pump issues, was augmented with data and information gathered by some other residents, which we found very helpful. Some folks have a more technical background, and we found this to be quite valuable. And we will continue to meet monthly throughout the winter to keep abreast of issues, the Select Board actions, and just to keep in touch. If we move to page 5, as part of our effort to identify issues relevant to the summer residents, we conducted a survey earlier in the year this year. The survey was more modest than the prior year. It had 3 to 4 questions and was conducted over a 4-week period. We had just over 100 responses. We wanted to capture a little bit of background data along with summer resident input on issues. The survey was distributed through social media, the Chronicle, and shared directly with residents. We asked how long summer residents had owned a home in Chatham, on average just over 25 years, with the shortest responded at 1.5 years, and one family has owned a home here in their family tree for over 100 years. And not a big surprise, we learned that summer residents are clustered in the New England area and the Southeast, largely Florida, when not here. And actually, I'm calling from Florida today, and it's about 85 degrees. Moving to the issues brought forward via the survey, no real surprises and largely consistent with prior years. Water-related issues were the most common one raised. Concerns about drinking water availability with some pump station limitations, the impact of fertilizer on groundwater, and contributors to bacteria and other contaminants in local ponds. Parking and traffic issues were also frequently mentioned, specifically downtown parking during the summer and the need for a long-term congestion strategy. The housing crisis was another area that was raised. It was identified by one resident as the most critical issue that we face locally, with a recommendation that we address this collaboratively with other towns. There was also nice recognition of the progress that the town has made over the past year in affordable and attainable housing. Other issues that were raised a little bit less frequently were town taxes and finances, beach maintenance, and environmental concerns. Most of these issues are being worked or managed by the town staff or other groups, but they do offer areas for us to keep an eye on to see where perhaps we can help out or maybe make a difference. If we move to page 6, I had mentioned earlier that we met with town staff and committees, and here's a list of the visitors. Some of them actually have the correct name. Sorry, Stephen. Oh, we do have Stephen Daniel. At one point it said Jeff Daniel. And these folks were kind enough to spend time with us. We had a pretty broad array of staff and committee topics. Our approach was to collect questions from the SRAC members and then share them with the presenter a few days in advance of our meeting to help ensure that our time together was productive. If we move to page 7, I'd like to cover just some of the key takeaways from all of our meetings and discussions. Starting with town finances, they continue to be well managed as exhibited by the continued AAA rating and the modest tax rate. With that said, the management of capital projects and prioritization should be reviewed to ensure that our dollars are spent on the most critical needs. As identified in the survey, great progress on affordable and attainable housing, and now we hope that the pace of execution and construction will progress quickly as well. The sewer project has a wide range of challenges, both short and long term, and again, we'll talk about those at another time. We were disappointed by the CFAL vote earlier this year and the current plan to spend material dollars on the existing building. The SRAC has supported various plans in the past, modifications to the community center, and also the 1610 Main Street site. We hope that an alternative plan for the CFAL can be identified before material dollars are spent to retrofit the current facility. Water availability is clearly on everyone's radar screen, and the town monitors usage and capacity routinely. The growing demand and changing standards such as PFAS could drive the need for capital projects. And finally, we think the impact from the recently approved and implemented short-term rental regulation should be monitored and assessed as time passes. The common comment that we hear is that the increase in rentals is changing the character of Chatham, and this impacts both full-time and summer residents. If we move to page 8, I referenced earlier, a critical area for the town is the management and prioritization of capital projects. There's a wide range of projects on the table, and they do add up to material dollars. These projects, such as the sewer system, transfer station, the waterfront, CFAL, will dominate future debt service payments. Providing clean water is an ongoing challenge, and there's the potential need for additional capacity or the impact of new standards such as PFAS which could drive the need for critical capital projects. It's not apparent that all of these projects have been fully costed and prioritized. And on page 9, the budgeting process has not always provided sufficient detail to ensure projects are fully funded. For example, the need for additional dollars to recently complete Bridge Street. We recommend that as appropriate, the town ensure each individual project has a cost projection developed or validated by town staff, and that capital requests in the town warrants be project-specific versus more of a bucket approach to capital funds. Routine review of costs during these project executions with material changes communicated to the residents would be beneficial. While some of these steps may well be happening today, we suggest a review just to ensure they're working as intended and as appropriate, and that appropriate controls over the budgeting and expenditure of capital funds are in place. Page 10, looking ahead, well, that was 2024, and just a quick look ahead for the SRAC. We'll continue to monitor and engage on the sewer project, hoping to help find efficiencies and address some of the longer-term issues. We'll look to assess the impact of short-term rentals on our communities. And finally, we'll look to improve our communication with several residents. On the last page, look, I know that was a lot to cover. It was an active summer for us, and we were able to cover a lot of ground because of the amazing support from town management. Jill personally attends as many of our meetings as she can, which really does make a difference. There's not a better resource, and the support of the select board and the access that you give us is very much appreciated. We'd be glad to come back and talk about any of these issues with you, or should you have any questions on any individual topic, please just let us know. We're glad to reach out and connect on that. So on behalf of the SRAC, let me thank you very much and see if you have any questions or follow-ups.
Dean, do you want to start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Jeff. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very succinct and obviously a very organized process was undertaken this past year under your, I guess, new chairmanship of this board, of this committee. I wanted to focus a question on the CFAL, and I know you had a presentation, long interaction with the chair of the Council on Aging at one of your meetings, which I attended. On November 19th, we're going to have this board is going to have a report from the architect that's developed a plan for remodeling, reworking the existing building, and is working on final cost estimates. There was a meeting at staff level that I attended along with the chair and the town manager recently. Was an interim brief update on the progress of that work. I was encouraged. There's nothing that I can relate in terms of final numbers, but it looked rather promising, and I'm hopeful that when they come back on the 19th, we may have something worth looking at. So I wanted to encourage, I know you said you were disappointed and there's concern about investing money in that property, and I share that concern. For me, there's a ceiling as to how much money I'd be willing to put into that before I would say, let's knock the building down and put a new one up. And historically, SRAC had a report that Jill McDonald and Phil Richardson put together recommending just that, knock the existing building down and put a new one up. And I know that in a more recent iteration, SRAC came forward with a community center-oriented presentation. So I would just encourage, I know you're following this, I would just encourage SRAC to, keep an open mind about it and take a look at what's being presented, and maybe it's something that we can all support and finally get this this project underway. But that's just a comment from mine. But I very much I've always appreciated SRAC. I think it makes it, I think SRAC has made a great contribution, continues to make a great contribution to the town, to our work here, to the Finance Committee's work, and I look forward to what you're going to have to say on the grinder pump issue in a couple of weeks. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you very much for a very succinct presentation. Just a couple of questions and comments. The comment on breaking up capital projects is well made, I think. I think we learned that lesson. And it's likely, at least for this board, you'll likely not see a whole bunch of warrant articles come with proposing a whole bunch of capital being spent in one lump sum. I think it's appropriate that the town examine each project on its merits, so I think that's a point well made and well taken. You may have already, SRAC may have already presented this to us, but do you have a summary of the survey results? I think they did, but I would love to see them again, just to see kind of how your respondents prioritize their needs or what their view of the town and its needs. I would just love to see that again.
Oh, sure. We
Yeah.
can, certainly, we'll shoot that over to you.
That'd be great. And then I'm looking forward to the grinder pump discussion. I think it's an important one. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much for your report. Very good.
Shereen?
Pleasure. Thank you.
Hi there. Oops. Hi there. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a question, because I think it's important that we, the survey that you conducted was important, and was really happy to see that there was some outreach. Are there any other plans to outreach to, or any specific plans that you have to outreach to summer residents outside of the survey? I'm not sure you mentioned it or not.
Other than the survey, we haven't had much outreach. We also have struggled to actually communicate effectively with the larger summer resident population, and doing a better job of that is on our work list. We haven't seen over the past couple of years issues that have been raised where we thought, wow, there's something that hasn't been on the radar screen that hasn't been brought forward by someone somehow. So we haven't really invested in doing more data gathering, in all honesty. But getting the word out and just more dialogue as we go through the year is something that we really would like to do.
How does a summer resident know that you exist?
We've asked that same question.
So I guess that
well,
within that question, there's a
we're
solution.
Yeah, obviously we're on the website, on the town's website, and we have the summer town meeting, which gets quite a bit of publicity. So folks become aware that we exist through some of the publication that we do through that venue. But other than that, we have not. It's hard to we haven't found a good way to get the word out that we are there, and we do talk about that quite a bit.
I wonder if there's any communications through assistance through our town staff and looking at maybe tax rolls and collecting that kind of data, and then doing some sort of outreach that, such as a letter, but you have to have a vehicle behind that that's going to facilitate it, like either signing up for a newsletter or you getting the meeting minutes or something more, that's more community-based to sort of get a bigger outlook from the community at large as to what the needs are for summer residents. Just my suggestion.
Thank you for that. That's a nice idea. And I know that the town's made the main sheet that goes out available to us when we've tried to communicate a few things, and maybe we can use that a little more robustly. But thank you for that.
Yeah, it does start with direct outreach first. That's your first step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori?
Thank you.
No, Jeff, many thanks for the presentation tonight, and thank you for all the committee members, all their effort and time and input they put into these meetings throughout the summer. So I don't have any pressing questions, so just thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jeff. Good, excellent presentation and a good summary of what you've been up to and direction and so forth. I have one question and one comment. My question is, it relates to the comments that you've made on a couple of the slides regarding views from the summer residents, however representative they may be, regarding short-term rentals. And what I hear is a concern, but I'm not sure I got the sense of exactly, is the concern to reduce short-term rentals or to have a better control of it, or what as well as how that relates to the larger housing problem and the need for year-round housing. So that's a kind of a general question.
Yeah, I would say that the discussion has been very, very limited, quite frankly, so far. Has kind of had two veins, and I really can't articulate one very well other than the comment that I made that the character of the town seems to be changing with all the rentals. A comment that's been made by a number of folks who have been here for 20 or 30 plus years. And I'll be honest, I haven't really delved into what do they actually mean by it? What do they actually mean by that? How is it changing? Is it the fact that rental homes aren't maintained as well? Is it that you just have more churn in your neighborhood and you have a loss of community? We haven't really broached that yet. But that was one of the venues, was the changing character of the town. I forget what the other item was, but it's been pretty high level, in all honesty, and so we have it on the radar screen to talk through it as we move to next year.
Yeah, and the other more of a general comment that I have which goes a little bit to the comments you've heard from my colleagues regarding communication and connection with a larger slug of or slice of the constituency. I think as I observed the work this year, it was very focused in terms of specific projects, specific initiatives, and input of a substantive nature from your group that was, I think carried significant expertise with it. And I think to the extent that you can position Summer Residence Advisory Committee as just that, as an advisory committee, yes, with respect to issues and concerns of the constituency, but also maybe bringing some expertise and wisdom to our deliberations on the big issues that we're facing, that would hopefully help us and maybe enlist a little higher level of and wider scope of interest from your group.
No, very good. Very good. I think that lines up well with where we'd like to go. So thank you for that.
Right. Anything else? I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much for the time.
Okay, we appreciate it. Very helpful. Okay. Now we turn to public comments on the business agenda, with the exception of item G relating to the Stepping Stones Road property. Any public comments here in the room? Any comments from those online?
No comments.
Thank you. So we will turn to the business agenda itself. Item number 1 is approval to open the 2024-25 base golf season. I hope we have Shellfish Constable Renee Gagne. There she is. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Renee Gagne, Shellfish Constable. And I'm here requesting that you open base golf season on Friday, November 1st.
Questions, comments? Do you want to move?
So moved. Approved.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nicastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Thank you. That was easy.
Thank you. Very easy.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much. Next is considering reduction in membership from 9 to 7 members on the Chatham Cultural Council. Welcome, Co-Chair Barry Desilets. Thank you.
Barry Desilets, North Chatham, co-chair of the Chatham Cultural Council. We would like the amount of members reduced to 7 from 9 because we only have 5 active members. So if we keep it at 9, if one person misses, we don't have a quorum. And therefore, we can't even give our money away on the days we have that meeting. So we would like to have it at 7.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Corey?
Sure. I know we've had this discussion before, and I've served as a liaison in the past. I mean, we've had increase in membership, decrease in membership. This is the necessity for the meeting. I know that you guys may be having another conversation down the road, maybe about residency of members and recruiting efforts that we're going to have at a later stage. But to keep the committee functioning with the 5 existing members, I think reducing it from 9 to 7 is a necessity. Yes.
Okay.
And I moved that, actually.
Okay.
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Chief Anderson will update us on the new parking ticket software and the 2024 parking ticket statistics. Along, I see, with Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the board. Mike Anderson, Chief of Police. With me is Craig Rowe, Director of Town IT. I'll be brief. Just about a year ago, the board voted to implement the new parking software, the increase in the parking violations. I just want to bring us back to the year before last. The 2022 totals of tickets issued, you will see at just under 600 and 29,950 for the fines. That's a relatively low number because the year following, in 2023, that was the first year we introduced our 4 community service officers. And that was one of their primary duties and responsibilities, is issuing parking violations. So you'll see the substantial increase. It's almost doubled. Go back. And what's interesting to note on the fine totals, this was the last year before this new system. It was a very difficult mechanism for us to really determine the percentage or the dollar amount of the fines that were paid. It was a spreadsheet. There was no real registry attachment to it as far as if someone was a scofflaw or a delinquent. There was no real penalty, and there was no real urgency to pay these tickets. So you'll see in the next slide, once we implemented this new technology that Craig will explain a little bit further in detail, the numbers increased even more. In 2024, I will add that we also added a 5th community service officer, and that 5th community service officer's primary duty was not to be on Main Street, but was to float to the parking hotspots, which you'll see in a slide following, the schoolhouse ponds, the beaches, the bridge streets, and areas like that. What's significant with this slide, you'll see that the fine totals are pretty substantial, but the fine totals that are paid, that's about a 68% return on the payment. So, so far we've received 68% of those fines returned, which is pretty substantial. And just to explain what the software looks like, this is pretty much what the ticket book looks like. It's a regular Apple device, and I'm actually wearing what the ticket machine printer would look like. It fits right on your belt. They wear them on their belt, or they wear them in a carrier. So they're very small, very easy, very light. And this new software, it also decreases the amount of officer time on the violation. It increases the accuracy. It backfills all the GPS. It populates everything automatically. It takes photographs. It digitally chalks your tires. It increases the accuracy of the violation, which makes appeal a little bit more difficult. If you want to go to the next one. Just a breakdown of who issues the tickets from last year. You can see that the community service officers did their part. The 6 from IT, that was just training citations, mostly Craig Rowe's license plate. Harbor Masters did a great job with 53, but you'll see that the majority of the violations are ticketed by our community service officers. One more. People are curious on what the most common violation is. It is the outside of marked area, which is usually on Main Street. We had a couple of violators appeal by using what's called a CMR reference. And in Massachusetts, according to the CMR, a parking space has to be minimum 9 feet wide, but that's in a parking lot. Obviously, the roadway in Main Street, if you extended those 9 feet parking spaces out from the curb, you would now not have a safe roadway for traffic to traverse each other. So in layman's terms, that 9 feet really doesn't exist on Main Street. It's really up to the vehicle operator and the size of the vehicle that he or she is operating to make the determination, obviously, if they can fit in that Main Street parking area. But those are the number one, the top 4 violations that we received. And most ticketed states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York, and those Massachusetts tickets, if they are delinquent, if they are late, they get attached to the Mass Registry of Motor Vehicles, and it would not be uncommon for their license or registration to be not renewed until these tickets are paid. Next one.
That was this one. So I'm just going to go over some of the back-end stuff. One of the biggest problems that I've always found trying to implement new softwares is getting engagement by the staff and the people that need to utilize the software. This was really embraced by the police, by every officer, and particularly by the CSOs. You see, they wrote 1,900 violations. They're pretty active around town. They're always coming in, telling a story. And they were actually proactive in a lot of cases where if they saw a violation, they would actually come in, particularly town hall. They would come in and they would ask around if somebody's parked out there. Are they doing town business? If they weren't, they went out and wrote a violation. If they were doing town business, they said, hey, you're in you shouldn't be parking here. So their engagement was really good. I feel, around town, and I saw him multiple times, and one of the summer resident advisory office on the committee was parked there, and they asked who it was, and I said, I know the car. He was doing some work. So they were really good, and just, said, hey, you're not supposed to park here, and he was loading up. So I thought that was really good. This screen here shows the total violations, $144,027. The amount paid is $94,607. Outstanding balance, $36,000. And the total fees they're like $5 fees on top of tickets. So a lot of people were paying these fees on top of what they were being charged. So, or a $20 fee. So we are getting a lot of people are paying these violations. They're really trying to get them done. They have 21 days to pay the violation, and then they get a $5 fee. And they also have 21 days. After 21 days, they can't appeal the ticket. So after 21 days, if you haven't appealed it, you're out of luck. You just have to pay the violation. When we came to you previously, we talked about what the cost of this was. We asked to increase the ticket fees to $75. Of the $75, it costs us about $16 per ticket. That includes the processing fees, which we're absorbing for the violator, rather than having them, pay a $75 ticket and then a 3% or however it works out. And the software cost is built into that. So, we're not losing money on the process. It's not costing the town any more money with this software. We're beginning the process now of tracking down this $37,000, or whatever the number was. I think it's a little bit different than what Mike had, because of some updated information. We're starting to track those down now. So they're going to get sent a notification saying that they have an outstanding ticket and to pay it within 30 days. If they don't pay it within 30 days, a $20 fee is going to be assessed. And then at 31 days after that, they'll get another letter saying they've been assessed a $20 fee. If it goes to the Massachusetts registry, there's another $20 fee that'll be assessed on top of that. So worst case, if you don't pay your ticket and it goes to the registry, it's $120. If you pay it within 30 days, it's the $80. If you pay it after the 30 days, between 30 and 60 days, it'll be $100. So that's kind of the process that we go through. And the last slide, this is a little bit hard to see, but these are the violations. These are the hotspot areas where we're issuing tickets around town. You see downtown is the hotspot, Lighthouse down around the Harbour Master's office down there, the Fish Pier around Chatham's Bar. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, you'll see out west the Schoolhouse Pond, that's a hotspot also.
Yep. So this is all the locations where where it's been pretty active, and the CSOs have been going around and the officers have been going around and writing tickets there. Judy did 237 citations contested, and all the CSOs were encouraged to take pictures. So a lot of these were just, you had to pay. There's no evidence to say that you shouldn't have to pay because there's a picture of the violation. If you're parked in a handicap spot, there's a blatant picture of your car parked in a handicap spot. If you're outside the lines, if you parked the wrong direction, if you're parked in front of a hydrant. So CSOs and the police officers did a really good job of taking pictures, and almost every ticket has at least multiple pictures related to it. So it's really hard to say, hey, I didn't do this, when there's a picture which is time-stamped. It shows on the ticket. When they get their ticket, it says photos taken. So as soon as they log onto the website, they see a ticket violation, so with the pictures. So I think it was a really good, encouraging year this year. You know, as I say, we've moved a long way from handwritten tickets. Everything will be now chased down the outstanding, and hopefully we get a good return. The 68%, I talked with the company this morning, 68% is really good return currently without us sending out delinquency letters, so.
If I could just add, I think that we had a lot of options as far as technology to choose from. I think we made the right decision. I think Craig did a great job. I think the board did a great job in taking this on. I appreciate it. I think the software and the process has been a success, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Jeff?
I just have a couple, just some of the dots. The one in North Chatham, is that the Cow Yard Landing?
Yes.
Okay, and then the one down at the corner of Oyster River, that's the town landing down there?
Yes.
Then the one in West Chatham, not Schoolhouse, but by the, is that the airport?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks.
Court?
No, I think this program has worked out really, really well. But when we talk about hotspots, we figure out how I want to phrase this. So one observation I made during downtown summers is there's certain stretches. As an example, Christian Science Reading Room wrapping around the front of the church on a daily basis, car after car after car after car outside the line. Next day, car after car after car. I mean, that probably 200 feet of section, I'd be curious how much generated of those tickets, but it's a constant area that people are parking. And is there, when you talk about that 9-foot delineation of a spot, is there any thought about maybe how we can tidy that up a little bit better, or is it just that's just going to be what it's going to be with with cars of today's sizes?
To answer your first question, because this is GPS populated, if you ask me for that specific address or those specific addresses, I can get that data and get that number back to you.
Okay.
Because we can break it down. It's not just Main Street.
Yep.
In the area of, it's pretty specific. And as far as tidying it up, you've got a couple of choke points on Main Street. Tail of the Cod is one, in front of the cookware is another. Pretty much right where you just mentioned, where the driveway opposite to the Chatham Hardware. Unless we lessen the width of the sidewalk, we don't have a lot of options.
No, it's an observation I made, because I drive into town every day, and I'm like, ticket, 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 ticket,
Yep.
ticket, 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 ticket. I mean, it's a gold, I use the term gold mine, but it is a spot that if you're parking, I don't understand if you park there more than once, you're foolish, because you're going to get a ticket.
Right, right.
If I might.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, and we see our own success because our parking areas are so narrow downtown.
Right.
You made the statement yourself that if you really had the regular 9-foot wide parking spot, you wouldn't be able to have two-way traffic.
You could
downtown.
not.
So I'm speaking blasphemy, but I've often thought that maybe it should be parking on one side of downtown rather than both sides, because it is such a narrow, crossway going either north or south. It's very difficult to sometimes you click mirrors, just traveling. It's very, very narrow.
And mirrors are expensive now.
They are.
They're very
They are.
expensive.
So, I mean, ironically, because we have such a narrow street downtown, we're sort of seeding our own success with the tickets.
And again, the onus is really on the vehicle operator to recognize the fact that they're driving a gigantic SUV as opposed to a Honda Accord. And if they can't fit there, they can't fit there.
Dean?
Thank you. So two things. So if they park more than 1 foot from the curb, that's a violation?
It could be.
Okay. Which would aggravate the situation Jeff's talking about. I had one question. When, in Massachusetts, because that's what we know, does the license or the registration, I guess would be the registration, get impacted? Is it?
So in Massachusetts, you have to have 2 violations within Massachusetts registered with the registry. So if I got a parking ticket in Chatham and I didn't pay it, we send all the tickets to the registry. They don't get a lock on their driver's license until the second violation. So if somebody in another town, let's say they're in, Manchester, Mass, and they send their tickets to the registry, as soon as that second ticket is identified as unpaid, then they get a lock on their license. And then they have to pay Chatham $20 to unlock the registry lock and Manchester to unlock the registry lock. So you have to have 2 violations.
And they have to pay the fine as well?
Correct. They have to pay so yes, if I don't pay a ticket, and it goes to the registry, it'll get escalated to $120. Now, we're on the low side. Other towns, they're right off the bat, $15 violation after 21 days. So the ticket goes from 75 to 90 in some other towns. We're only doing 5.
But they could have 2 violations in Chatham, and that would put the lock on.
That'll trigger it, yep,
Okay.
unpaid violations.
All right, thank you.
Just the $36,000, in light of what you're just explaining, particularly, at least with respect to Massachusetts, is that sort of in limbo, so we may get some of that someday? But
We're hoping
for the
to
moment-
get, when I talk with the company, I had a conversation with them today. They say that about 10% of people don't end up paying, and by the time they trace them down, they might have had a lease car and they sold the lease car, or it's a rental car, and you just lose. There's a little bit of loss there. They presume anywhere from 80 to 90% return is very common. So what's happened outside of the Massachusetts ones now, anyone that have outstanding tickets over 30 days now, out of state, we're paying the company, and they're going to find out what the registration is, and they're going to get sent a delinquency letter, which is going to say that after 60 days, you get a $20, and then you'll get an additional. The problem is outside of Massachusetts, they won't do a registry lock. So we can't do anything with it. We will see if we have someone from out of state that comes into town next year and has an unpaid parking ticket, and the CSO or the police officer pulls up, same registration plate, it's going to say, oh, you have an unpaid fine in another town. Now, as a board, you could determine that, any unpaid out-of-staters, you could determine that that person also gets an additional fee. So the capturing the last little bit of it, we're going to get a lot of them in Massachusetts particularly. New York, Connecticut, as the chief said, are the 2 other hot spots. You know, if we get 50, 60% return on that, I think that's a really good number.
Good, okay.
And also, if I could add, with the fees paid, that also comes with the ease of which that ticket can be paid upon receiving it. It can be done right from your phone. So people just pay it.
Yeah, Judy had about 70, 80% were paid online. 20% people put the ticket in an envelope and sent in a check, which is very cumbersome for us. But I think with us absorbing the transaction fee on the credit card, yes, it does cost us about $6 just for that process. But, you know, I think it's a better way for us to, Judy's time can be used in better ways than trying to save $6 on every ticket. So the credit card was pretty good. We had once or twice, we had a couple of issues, but generally they just they do the QR code, they type in the number, it pops up, it shows pictures of their violation, and they just hit pay, and that's it. It's done in, you know, it takes 30 seconds to write a ticket, and it takes 45 seconds to pay it. So quick return.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay. 2024 ballot, question 6. I'll invite Barnstable County Commissioner Ron Bergstrom and Chatham Assembly Delegate Randy Potash to the podium. Okay, all right, so we're going to do this.
I'd like to get the... I'd rather have the last word, but if you want me to go first,
Welcome.
that's fine. So thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to see you. As you may recall, 16 months ago, I was here, and I told you that this was in its embryonic stages. I wanted you to hear it from me first. We provided you with the red line. We discussed it a bit, and we were, you know, very candid. I brought our clerk with us, who is very knowledgeable about technical aspects of charters, and just incidentally, luckily, our new administrator is also an expert on charters, which is great to know. Anyway, so we reviewed it together, and since then, all the delegates, 15-0, all have been behind this. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats, some are independent. Doesn't matter, because we all believe that this is important. We chose to do it through one of 3 ways to do charter amendments or changes. This way is 9-1, which allows for modifications that don't impinge on the elections or the structure of the assembly. And so we chose that, and it was approved by the Secretary of State. Also, since I saw you that time 16 months ago, this was made into an ordinance that was, again, passed 15-0. And ordinances, the process at the Assembly is that an ordinance goes to the Board of Commissioners. And they have 3 choices on an ordinance. They can approve it, they can disapprove it and give reasoning, or they can ignore it. If they ignore it, it becomes into effect. Well, they ignored it. And since that actually happened at the end of the summer, I think it was September of 2023. So this is how long this has gone on for. Remember, too, that the Assembly of Delegates have had numerous public hearings, and I'm not the only delegate that's gone to their select board. We all did. We've all written to papers about it, and radio silence from the Board of Commissioners. Complete crickets. Not a word about this. Ignored then, ignored as the calendar goes around, and all of a sudden it's on the ballot and it's been loud. And so why not wait till charter review of 2025? Sure, that's the question that's on your mind. It's the only reasonable question that could come up. Why not wait? Well, 2025 charter review is squarely in the purview of the Assembly of Delegates. We control charter review. And 2/3 of the assembly is going to control whatever comes out of charter review. And I already told you, we're 15-0 on this. So there's no reason to wait. Waiting costs money. Why? Because as you know, and as everybody's so tired of, there's been problems with the board and the assembly pretty much way before I came around. And during the time between now and the end of charter review, there's going to be 2 more budget cycles. And that's the reason why we took this route, is to just try to get this done. So no reason to wait. It's been crickets until now. And I don't think that the board should be able to benefit from doing nothing and then act like something should have been done. They had numerous times they could have talked to us about it. Nothing's been done. Now, the last thing I want to say is that this board, and I hope the town of Chatham knows that I have your back at the assembly. I've shown you that a few times. I showed you that when ARPA funding was an issue. The board didn't want the towns to get any money at all. I tried to get half the money to the towns. We only got 10 million. So you got your share of the 10 million, and then I also had to go to bat for the town of Chatham to be able to let you use it for what projects you wanted to use it for, some revenue replacement. So that all happened. The Assembly of Delegates has been responsible for resurrecting the dredge program that was in really dire need of rate increase and losing millions of dollars. And also, last thing I'll mention, you may recall that I think it was 2 budgets ago, the Assembly of Delegates restored funding for the Shine program, the Children's Cove, and shellfish seeds. So that was all our work, and I've been very active. I enjoy it. I like to represent the town, and that's basically if you have any questions.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Randy. I just have a very basic question. I think it's important for the public to understand. What is the problem that this ballot initiative is trying to solve?
Well, what's happened is I think it was actually 3 budget cycles ago, the Assembly modified the budget, cut the budget by $800,000 and 10 FTEs that was proposed. And that caused a lot of turmoil. The commissioners did not like us doing that. I think they felt like they were bitten by the family dog, essentially, because through the years, the assembly was a rubber stamp type of situation. And all of a sudden, there's new delegates now taking more of an initiative, using the committees that were supposed to be used all along. And they started to talk about ignoring our ordinances. And as a matter of fact, they actually and they continue to ask council for advice as to how not to allow us to do our jobs. And I don't want to really get too much into the weeds on this because it can turn into a food fight, but I will tell you that there's been turmoil ever since that $800,000 cut. And then the next year, the budget again was the Assembly's budget because they wanted to cut services, which I just talked about. And last year, it wasn't as bad, but every year it's painful. They didn't want the Assembly to have any power when it came to the ARPA money. And then we also had $28 million in reserves, and that took, oh my God, I think that took 18 months for them to figure out what to do with that. And every time the Assembly tried to opine, it was an uphill battle. And so people are tired of it. And it's 15 delegates from every town that have we just want to restore the charter to what the founders of the county charter intended.
Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Randy. I've got a few questions. I'm going to start with trying to understand what's in. I've already voted. I'm not going to say which way I voted. I've got the county commissioner and our representative here. And you both do a great job for the town, by the way. So as I understand, there are a couple of things happening. One is to codify that the Assembly would have a standing committee on finance.
Right.
The other is to grant the Assembly the authority to increase the annual budget that's being proposed and submitted to you, as
Right.
well as to reduce it.
Yes,
And thirdly, you can, the Assembly would have the authority to initiate post-budget appropriation requests
that's correct.
that would have to be approved by the county commissioners? by the
Well,
board?
they would have to go through the county commissioners, and then 2/3 of the assembly always has last say on ordinances.
Yeah.
And so you want to know where that came from, that whole idea with supplemental budgets? So the charter and the second section of it lists the rules about ordinances. And I'm not going to start to read it to you now, your time is valuable. But I will tell you, and I don't think Commissioner Bergstrom is going to deny it, that ordinances can be put forward by any elected official on any, reasonable topic, and it goes through the ordinance process. The budget is an ordinance, and there's nothing in the charter that says that any exceptions on ordinances. And this particular charter is a special act charter, unlike any other charter that we've ever come up with, because we have an assembly of delegates, which is a unicorn. We haven't found one like it in the United States. And we're not bound by the state law on charters. And that's been clear all along, but county council finds it curious and always thinks of it as a gray area. And we want to, sort of disavow anybody of that. We talked to original delegates, and we've had them at our meeting. We had one at our meeting, and we have one of the almost original delegates as part of our group now. And we were never intended to be an advisory committee. And so that's really what the rub is.
Well, it's probably accurate to say that the charter has some gaps in it that may need to be filled along lines of whether an ordinance is meant to include the budgeting process. Because I say that because in my understanding, and as you know, I was city solicitor, the city council in Quincy, and I think in all cities in the Commonwealth, and I think the legislative body in the towns, including our town, can only reduce the budget as submitted by the executive. They can't increase it. So you're proposing a model that's a little different.
We got that from the state constitution.
Okay. My last question is, because you said at the beginning that you actually did adopt an ordinance and it was ignored, so it went into effect. So if it went into, I assume the ordinance you're referring to is all of this.
It's to have a budget, to have a ballot question. That was the
Oh,
ordinance.
okay.
To have a ballot question.
I was going to ask you why
Does
you
that
need a
help?
ballot.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was
Everything
substantive.
has to be done by ordinance at the
Okay.
assembly. That's how we roll. So
Okay.
we even had to have an ordinance to have a budget question, a ballot question.
Okay.
So that was ignored.
All right.
And and I just would imagine you'd find that curious, that that's been ignored for over a year, and now all this noise. It's
Okay.
troubling.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sri?
I just have a statement, more than a question, Randy. I've already voted, and I'm, again, in Dean's camp here, but I appreciate the idea that there's this clarification, that process that you're engaging in, and that it is involving all the 15 towns' representatives. And your advocacy to the community has been well documented, obviously, and we
Thank you.
appreciate your work as an advocate for our community. So in just saying that, I'm just really happy that this is being brought as a vote to the community, and we'll see what happens.
And we are too. It's not a hot lung machine. If we have to wait 2 more cycles, it's going to be unfortunate,
Right.
but, thank you.
We get it, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Randy. Ron?
Is it, usually when a ballot question goes on the ballot, it's because there's some groundswell of support for it. You know, there's some controversy out in the community, you know, about wind turbines or about the hospitality industry, how they pay their employees. And eventually people get together and they sign petitions and they so on, and they get it on the ballot. It's not the case with this one. And a lot of people who, I would say the vast majority of them, who go to the ballot, if they haven't already, some of you have already, and look at it, and they come down to question 6. Now, remember, we're kind of insiders, so we have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on, but I doubt very few people have been given that kind of knowledge they would need to make a decision. And I'm going to go to so why is it there? You know, why is it there? So I'm going to go to a op-ed piece by Eric Turkington, who was a former a member of the House of Representatives. Aside from the 15 members of the County Assembly of Delegates who placed this question on the ballot, question 6 has no active proponents. Its sole supporters are those 15 Assembly members, and its sole purpose is to give them greater power over the county budget than they currently have under the charter. This ballot question was authored by the Assembly, talking to itself with little or no public input or public awareness. So that's the first point is, why is this on the ballot? People aren't going to know what they're voting on when they go into the ballot. So what does it do? Well, this is a statement put out by the commissioners. This measure is an attempt to exempt the Assembly from provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 35, Section 28, the state law that establishes the budgetary and appropriating authority of all county executive and legislative branches in Massachusetts. In our state, the authority to prepare and initiate budgets and supplemental appropriations is delegated to the executive branch. This ballot question proposes to grant this authority to the Assembly and then exempt it from any of the current statutory limitation that exist in exercising that authority. And you mentioned, that was mentioned earlier by the, so that's how it works. Now, can you imagine going to town meeting and you put the budget on the floor and somebody stands up in the middle, gets the attention of the moderator and says, you know, I think we need another policeman. You guys haven't provided enough police. So I'm going to move that we add another $100,000 to the budget and we hire another policeman, okay? Now, if the moderator knows what he's doing, he'll rule him out of order right away. Because even if he would allow that measure to go on the floor and it was accepted, town meeting can't compel you to do something you don't want to do. That's how it works. They can give you money. Well, actually, in that case, they can't give you money, but they could say, here's $100,000, do what you want, but they can't compel the executive branch to do something that the executive branch hasn't asked for, and there's a reason for that. Suppose they were to do that, then they say, well, we don't like the person you hired. We want to be part of the process in hiring. So they start to encroach now on the executive authority of the commissioners or on the executive authority of the selectmen. So that's the issue that we're faced right here. Now, I was a member of I represented Chatham on the Assembly of Delegates for 12 years. I was Speaker for 8 of those years. There was one occasion when we passed a budget and we thought that the commissioners weren't adequately addressing an issue. And so we added a line item to the budget. I don't remember how much it was, and I remember even what it was for. And the commissioner said, you can't do that, okay? And I said, yes, we can. And so we went to county council. Actually, county council was shared by the Assembly and the commissioners at the time. So we went to outside counsel, Jim Lamke. He still serves. He's an expert in these matters in municipal law. And he gave us a very polite response. He said, you can't do that, okay? And so I wasn't happy about it, but I'm a clam digger, and he spent his life in municipal law, so I had to accept that. And during the course of some of the controversies between the Assembly and the commissioners, we have relied on county council, KP Law, Michelle Randazzo, and also John Giorgio, who's a Chatham resident, and they've given us clear direction. And a lot of times the Assembly didn't like that direction, you know. But the idea of saying there's this controversy out there and this conflict, the only controversy is out there is because they won't accept what they're being told by county council, whose job it is to make those decisions. So, you know, where is this going? You know, the timing by the Assembly is very, oh, by the way, the Assembly had a perfect right to cut $800,000 from our budget. Yes, we didn't like it, and of course we complained. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? I mean, but it's their job to cut, and it's our job to complain that they cut. So, I mean, we accept the fact they could do that. You know? And so where it's going now, since then, Standard & Poor's has raised our standing, our borrowing costs, whatever it is. Rating.
Bond rating.
Our bond rating, sorry, from AAA to AAA plus, and they've given us great accolades at how we've handled our budget process. Now, also, we just got an award. I don't know if I sent this to you, but from Barnstable County has received the prestigious Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. This award is the highest form of recognition in the field of government accounting and financial reporting, reflecting a significant achievement for Barnstable County and its management. Every year we're under budget. Last year, on a $20 million, we have a $30 million budget, but some of that has managing grants and so on. So an actual $20 million operating budget, we returned $1 million to the general fund. That is money that was appropriated and not spent. We have considerable reserves we put aside because we've had good years, and we know that that doesn't last forever. So the financial management of Barnstable County has never been better. Why are we doing this now? You know, can you imagine going through the course of a fiscal year and the Assembly comes along and said, you know, we want to do something else, or we don't like what you're doing. We're going to cut funds for some program that we don't think you're administering properly. You know, it may, as far as their unanimous idea of what they should be doing. Well, if you ask 15 people, do you want more power or less power, chances are all 15 would want more. But that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. There are reasons why these laws are in place. You know, they may be lost in 35 years of the charter, why it's done the way it's done, but there's a real good reason why we don't allow the legislative branch to encroach on the executive authority of the commissioners. It would result in more legal problems rather than less. So, you know, I don't want to beat this horse too much. Obviously, I'm a commissioner, so I'm against it. But, you know, if it works, don't fix it. And as far as respect for the Assembly, I have great respect for the Assembly. As I said, I served as Speaker for 8 years. They have a job to do, and they do it well. They did indeed get the towns $10 million more of the ARPA funds, but the town's already got $40 million, you know. There was a reason why the Treasury gave a regional entity the money it did, because it thought we'd be more effective in promoting programs than if it was given to individual towns. So, you know, I'm not regretting we gave the town an extra $10 million over the $40 million they already got, but there was a reason why the county originally did that, and there's a reason why each one of the delegates will say, no, give us the money. I mean, that's human nature. So I don't want to go too far down this road, but I believe that Barnstable County is a strong institution. We have programs that benefit people. We have, you know, brought in millions of dollars from state and federal agencies in the form of grants to deal with homelessness, to deal with substance abuse, to deal with coastal resilience. And it's only within the last 2 or 3 years that the Assembly feels that they don't have the authority they want. They want more authority than is given to them by the current charter. And I don't blame them for that, but there's, like I said, there's a reason why we operate under the rules that we operate in. And, you know, they're not an advisory board. If they were an advisory board, they wouldn't have cut $800,000 from our budget. And it's also been mentioned and I don't want to ramble here, but that the county council approved the language of the ballot question, which she did. She approved language that would make it eligible for the ballot, but she in no way approved the actual substance of the ballot question. So that's where we are. It's my opinion, and I think it's the opinion of the commissioners, that this is going to make things more complicated, going to involve more legal aspects, because if the assembly were to propose something, if they were to say, well, here's another whatever for this program that we didn't ask for, we wouldn't do it. I would just say no. And then they're going to come, they would go to court, which would be kind of awkward because county council works for both of us. So I'm just trying to avoid the minefields here. And I think this ballot question brings up a lot of minefields. And it's also bad timing, as I mentioned before, because next year, as Randy said, we're having a comprehensive regularly scheduled charter review that would involve, civic organizations, will involve boards of selectmen, will involve nonprofit organizations, housing advocates, and so on. And it's done by an independent committee that's appointed, not necessarily us, commissioners, or the assembly, but an independent committee to review the procedures of the county and to come up with any recommendations if they're needed. So that's my little talk. And I have one suggestion that has nothing to do with what we just discussed. But if I had my way, I would, and I said I was an assembly delegate for 12 years. Nobody paid attention to me. Okay. I mean, they did when I spoke, but as far as the ballot goes, you can imagine what the ballot you're looking at. I would have the assembly members elected at the town ballot. So there'd be a lot more attention, and there would be a lot more opportunity for people to understand what they did and how valuable they are if they fulfill their proper role. So anyway, that's my retort.
Questions?
Any questions? I stunned everybody into silence.
Dean, go ahead.
Hi, Ron, thank you for your presentation and your service. I had a procedural question about the charter review process, because that was an argument that was put forward against this proposal, and you've answered it already. I thought that the assembly members are elected at the county, but at the town ballot.
No, they're elected. They're on. Randy's
ballot.
on the ballot.
State ballot. Oh, right.
Tuesday.
Okay, that's right. That's right. I just a substantive question. And maybe this is the answer to this is dictated by what's already in the charter. Randy showed us the charter language when she was here previously. One of their proposals is to have a standing committee on finance. I guess I have a two-part question. Can't they do that now on their own? Can't they establish their own committee?
Yeah, they have a standing committee on finance, as far as I know.
And do the commissioners have an opinion as to whether they are favor or opposed to this, or are they neutral on it?
I'll give you a little history. We always had committees, and like the Congress, when something was proposed, it would go to a committee, whether it was committee on finance or committee on public, facilities, something like that. And then they would make recommendations to the assembly, but then the assembly said, well, we don't have enough authority. We would rather all of that pretty much go through us, the committee of the whole or whatever. And so the assembly's kind of fell by. But as far as I know, there's always been a finance committee. And when we submit the budget is submitted to the finance committee. They make recommendations to the full assembly. So yeah, we do have a finance.
And you don't have a problem, the commissioners don't have a problem with it?
Oh, no. I was surprised. You probably have in front of you the ordinance that created the
I don't have
ballot
it
question.
tonight, but that's what we had before.
Yeah,
No.
and that ordinance, covers a lot of, which is another thing, is it makes it look like it's housekeeping, but when you get down to the meat of it, it's not housekeeping, it's significant change in the authority of the two branches, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I think this horse is, on life support, so I don't want to belabor it, but do I understand that the nub of the issue here is that you don't have an issue with the Assembly of Delegates cutting their budget, but you do have an issue with their saying to you, here is an authorization that you are required to basically use and spend? Is that the
That's
nub of the
exactly
issue
right.
here?
They are the financial oversight of the county. They came out of the Financial Review Board, which is previous to the current charter. You know, it's only three of us. Who knows what we could do if nobody paid attention, you know? So we submit it to them, and they look at it, and they, like I say, 2 years ago, they cut $800,000 out of it, you know? And that's within their authority to do that, just like town meeting could conceivably cut your budget.
Right.
But they can't initiate supplemental appropriations.
So the only other question I want to ask, and then I'm going to pass, your description of the charter review process that you just articulated sounded a little bit different from the way Randy described the fact that the Assembly of Delegates has final authority by a 2/3 vote to dictate any charter amendment that they want. Is there a disagreement on that, or is that a legal issue?
It's a little
or-
confusing because they have the right, normally, there are two, if you look into state law, there are two ways to have a charter review. One is to go through the assembly, but the catch on that, if you don't deal with the terms of office and powers and so on of the assembly and the commissioners, you don't have to go through the ballot, okay? Well, anyway, but there is another separate law which says that you can elect delegates. In other words, you could run as a delegate for a charter review committee, and then at election, you get elected, and then you go with your fellow electors and you propose changes in the charter. That's a whole nother process. Now, from what Randy says, I guess the assembly is going to take it under their wing and do it in the normal process within the county. But they did make noises a few months ago, a month or two ago, that they were going to go to the alternate process of having separate outside committees. So I don't know at this point, you know.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah. When they start yawning, I know it's time for me to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Thank you, Randy. Much appreciated, both of you. Next case. Jill, do you want to introduce this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the board knows well, last year, November through January, we did a comprehensive review of the way that the board votes its goals and objectives, and we spent a lot of time. And with that, we discovered and determined that we had 6 priority goals. And I'll just read them really quickly for you. One was for year-round housing, educational excellence, foster a vibrant and sustainable local economy, environmental conservation, coastal resiliency, and natural resources, water management, and respond effectively to the needs of a diverse, welcoming, and livable Chatham. So with that review, there was also objectives that we had discussed. And what we had put before you tonight is your annual review, and understanding that we did a lot of work at this most recent session. We could go through the review of the goals and certainly look at refinements or any tweaks, or if the board wanted to vote to maintain those goals and objectives, certainly we can do that. And in the past, we've had a fiscal year and calendar year designation on all of the goals and objectives. We actually could take that off and have these as your goals and objectives in addition to your vision statement that we created for 2030. So in the attached, there are your goal buckets, and then there's your various objectives. And each objective has an update by town staff of where we are. And we've made some great progress, and certainly you can see that. And what we'll do moving forward as well is we do need to provide quarterly updates to the board so that you're not only receiving this at the year end, you'll be receiving it throughout the year so we can keep track and do any mid-year tweaks if we need to. We also asked the school superintendent, Scott Carpenter, to review the educational excellence item. And he had asked just for some refinement, not necessarily a change, but one of the goals, educational excellence, He had suggested, as it relates to the objective, to discuss possible school choice for families at Chatham Elementary School, particularly East Harwich. There's an action item under that that notes to collaborate with the Monomoy Regional School District to ensure that the town is supporting enrollment growth. He felt that was an action item to the objective. So we had the goal, we had the objective, and then the action item. And it's more clear when you look through the various spreadsheets. So that would require potentially a change to our regional agreement. And he brought that to our attention, but it's nice to have that collaboration with the regional school committee and to help us achieve the select board's goals. So that is really all I have to say on it. Tonight, it could be a kickoff, it could be the end, but I want to give you an opportunity to review the actions and status report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm going to offer a motion because I don't really think this board, which spent so much time last year in a work session to develop these goals exhaustively, really needs to spend much more time than to consider this evening renewing them for the next year. I really just had one question before I offer the motion relative to the superintendent's suggestion. Is he asking us to modify the language in it? I mean, it seems to suggest that the action item is subsumed under one of the objectives. And if we don't really list action items.
You're right, we don't.
We used to, we don't anymore.
He in reviewing it, felt that the action item was to meet with the regional school committee, and that certainly there's nothing wrong with it, but he suggested that we call it revisit with the regional school committee for having more Harwich families school choice to the Chatham Elementary School.
Does he want that to substitute for discuss possible school choice for families at Chatham Elementary? Is that what he wants?
Yes, and I know that the school committee votes their goals and objectives and action items a little differently than us, so I think that might have been his perspective, but yes. Because he said that this would increase the enrollment at CES, but it could potentially affect some of Harwich's assessment costs, which their costs would go down and ours would go up. So I'm probably spending more time on this, but in essence, it wasn't actually a change to the objectives. He just felt that the last bullet was an action item for the second.
No, it just really calls for discussion.
Yes.
So I don't know that in and of itself would implicate the regional agreement. I move that we approve the goals and objectives as currently in effect for, did you say we should not have a time period?
I actually don't think you do need a time period. It was more of a transitional year for us last year, but we can certainly discuss it.
Okay, so I'll move that we continue with the current, my motion is that we continue with the goals and objectives as currently in place.
I'm going to second that, but not to preempt discussion here, and I'll offer the floor to Shireen.
I just have a clarifying question, Dean. When you take the fiscal year and calendar year date off, or maybe this is Jill, what is the mechanism to revisit the goals and objectives? That can be done at any time, correct?
Yes, and we typically do that right after the budget summit, but before the budget directive is given. So again, it's a change. We certainly can keep it. It's just that we tend, and it's my doing primarily, to have a fiscal year and a calendar year reference. And so the fiscal years for the budget preparation, calendar years for your annual report, basically, so we can note the progress.
You want to amend your motion? Go
I was going to
ahead.
amend it to add, subject to annual review promptly after the next budget summit.
Well, as part of the budget process. Is that,
Or
does
as
that work?
part of the budget process, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
And I'll renew my second. Mr. Metters?
No, I have no problem with that. We spent a lot of time on these last year. I don't think we need to go over them because, I mean, they're very, relevant topics. I mean, those are our goals. I mean, and it doesn't take 1 year to do them. It's going to take a while to move some of this stuff forward. And I think collectively, we keep going with what's on the paper here. So I'm fine with this.
Jeff?
Yeah, as am I. I do think fiscal '25 is very different from a calendar year '26. So fiscal year '25 is 6/30/25, and calendar year is 12/31/26. So to the degree that the attainment of some of these goals will necessitate an action item that will affect budget and/or budgets, I think it's very appropriate that we have dates in here and, and revisit these fairly timely, because we're in the midst of budget season now. Some of these are going to carry over, and they're going to impact budget season next year as well. So I'm good with the fiscal year '25, calendar year '26. Calendar year '26 gets a little long, but it may go that long. These are large goals, 200 units. Some of these are very aspirational. That by their very definition, if we get to actions, will impact a budget or two or three. So anyway, and just a comment on the superintendent's suggestion. I do think it's a good idea to reach out to the school committee and broach the subject of, more school choice for Chatham, for the elementary school. It would solve a couple potential things: population growth, maybe in the elementary school, we'll get more kids in the school, and then perhaps a reduced assessment for Harwich, which is something that they're seeking as well. I'm not advocating for that, but it could be a win-win. Thanks.
So, first of all, I think I am completely in support of Dean's motion. I think we did a lot of work. I think we ended up with something good. I think it speaks across, pretty much all of the big issues, big ticket items that we need to be addressing. With respect to the time limitations, I'm going to gently suggest that my own view is, as long as we have a commitment via the motion to do this, to review these annually, which doesn't mean, we can review them anytime we want to. I don't like having, to fit what we're doing. Does it work in the context of fiscal '25 or calendar '26? I would really prefer to leave that part off, which is what I think Dean's motion did. Welcome your thoughts on that, Jeff, but as I say, I'm more comfortable having a kind of an open field, subject to our looking at it every year or at some specific time when we think we need to do something. I also want to say, I didn't expect that I was going to do this, but I actually got caught up and went through all of the items of your spreadsheet, which is enormously informative on two fronts. Three. Number one, I think we were pretty foresightful in what we needed to do and in directing activities which are reflected here that I'm pleased to see, as much as there is. Number two, I think it provides us with guidance for going forward, continuing work that's already there, but also pushing out with respect to the specific objectives. And then the last thing, and I'm not going to get into the details, but there are 2 or 3 places where I think maybe something is, could be added. The one I'll mention is the weather station out at the airport. I haven't heard anything about that. That is a federal government engagement here that seems to be progressing very nicely, and I think that's a pretty important item. There may be 1 or 2 others, but with that, I heartily endorse this.
Yeah, if I might, Mike,
Please.
I wasn't advocating for a regular cadence to its review. I think an annual review is very appropriate. I was just suggesting that, during budget season and seasons, that we pay close attention. That was what I was advocating. And I also echo your comment on the way this is laid out. the clarity, it's very well done. I read every word, and the staff has been working very hard, and I think you're right. I think there was some prescience here on the part of the select board in focusing on these issues, because they really does hit the nail on the head on all of our salient issues that we're facing right now. So anyway, I'm very much in favor. Annual review is fine, and this is well done.
Dean?
I was going to suggest, to get away from the timing issue, amending the motion to say, subject to periodic review at least, which shall be at least annually.
Perfect.
I'll renew my second.
Perfect.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just one more thing. So with the budget summit, we had our Superintendent Carpenter talk about the changing demographics with the students. And so one of the suggestions that Kathy just had given to me is getting back to the educational excellence, if we then have that third column to say, support the needs of all children in our town because of the changing demographics. So the column right now says, discuss possible school choice for families at Chatham Elementary School, particularly East Harwich. He thought if we move that under the action item for collaborate with the Monomoy Regional School District, this is what he had suggested, that third column then support the needs of all children in our town.
I guess I don't have any particular resistance to it. When I must have read it 3 or 4 times, trying to understand exactly what is he saying. And, you know, it wasn't clear to me whether we weren't just rearranging details as opposed to changing something that is a modestly big picture item. And as such, I'm a little reluctant to change one line in this thing without having a clearer understanding of exactly what's going on here. But I don't know. I'll defer to anybody else here.
I don't think it's that big a deal. I think we could follow up anyway, no matter what column it's in. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea, and we should pursue it. So I honestly don't care whether it's an action item or objective or aligns with this or that. But I think it's a good idea. I think we ought to pursue it. Those are my thoughts.
I agree. I would just point out that the overall goal says, provide adequate budgetary support to ensure the educational resources, facilities, programs, and activities meet the needs of the town's student population. That's everybody.
Yeah, and I guess I'm, in light of the meeting that we had, a couple of weeks ago in Harwich, I'm also a little reluctant to fuss with something that may have, I'll call it unintended consequences or unexpected consequences. So I agree with Jeff. I'm all for it. The question is, what is the implication of making sort of a tiny language change that has some potential significance that we may not have considered?
Yeah, and that's no problem at all. What we'll do is we'll continue to update this, and next year, if there's any changes, just as our vice chair said, it's the educational excellence for all children, all students, and so I think with Scott and me just discussing it, we were pretty focused on with the changing demographics at Chatham Elementary School, that will then get to the middle school and then to the high school.
Yep.
So again, we just got that information last week, so I'm fine to pay attention to this, and if there's anything that we need to either update or have that discussion, we can bring it back as a separate agenda item for the board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Mr. Nicastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Thank you. Is Greg Berman either online or I think I may see him online?
Yes,
Mr. Berman?
he's online.
You want to do the annual review of the intermunicipal Nauset Beach Agreement?
Yes,
Welcome.
thank you. Greg Berman, Director of Natural Resources. So it's that time of year again. We have an annual requirement under the intermunicipal agreement to review the, what do we have, terms, fees, and financial arrangements of the current agreement by October 30th. The Orleans Select Board has done their review and they have not recommended any changes. I think it's a little bit more unusual of a situation just because we will be coming up for a full new agreement. It only lasts 3 years. It will be expiring as of January 1. So we will be doing a full review of the term, fees, financial arrangements, pretty much everything. Probably start that in the next few months. But this is a chance to go over what is in that agreement. If you do have any concerns, please reach out or let me know now or later. And so, sorry, let me just pull this up here. I have reviewed it with the Director of Natural Resources for Orleans. We do have very good communication this year, and they've provided their 25% of the non-resident fees to the town already. This season it was $133,410. The resident fees of Chatham so far are $62,580. This is covering the needs of our program right now, primarily because we did not have to enact an HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan. But right now, I'm looking to see if you would like to discuss or review the current arrangement, or if you would like to postpone that for the more formal renewal of a 3-year agreement.
Thank you. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, Shereen and I met and with Greg, and there's really no need to do anything to this agreement right now. It's going to be reviewed in full at the end of June 30, 2025, and the money's fine. Nothing should change. It's good to go. Shereen.
Yeah, same thing, and, just having conversations with Orleans Select Board members and their Park and Rec commissions oversee this process. They have no problem with it. I mean, we're in a good place with them. I think that this is perfect to just go for what it is for this period of time, and we'll look at it when we have to open up the entire agreement.
Okay. Corey, you're good?
No, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm certainly good. And thanks for your taking on that preliminary look and advising us on that and simplifying our consideration. So I'm fine. Mr. Berman, I think you can go back and bring us something next spring.
Sounds good. Will do.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next. This is the topic that, and by the way, public comment is invited alongside of the board here. We've been at this for some time in various forms, in various contexts. Most recently, the Affordable Housing Trust Board had a meeting, I think it was the 16th of October, at which we had a lengthy report from the DPW director concerning the issue of sewer access for development of the Stepping Stones Road property for housing, affordable, attainable, workforce, whatever kind. And not to oversimplify, but essentially what was in some cases learned, in some cases confirmed, but the conclusion was unalterably that sewer as a timing issue is not a barrier to essentially developing that property as soon as we reasonably and sensibly can. Sewer is something that will fit into whatever the timetable is for development of that property. The second thing that I think is and that, as I say, my sense at the Affordable Housing Trust Board was that the issue of that sewer timing was potentially an obstacle for pushing to get something done there. I think secondly, that there is both a community and a select board consensus that project, property should be developed as home ownership opportunities. And I think the last piece of it, and again, we've been through this a number of different times in a number of different contexts, but the Affordable Housing Trust Board has the time and bandwidth of relevant experience and expertise to undertake that process as the primary focus. This board has a number of things on its agenda. This board only has 5 more meetings between now and the end of the year. This board has 2 people who are full-time retirees as opposed to 5 on the select board, on the Affordable Housing Trust Board. The Affordable Housing Trust Board has expertise in areas of finance, architecture, design, business, building, development, valuation, municipal projects, 40B projects, legal finance projects, and is plugged into, not in the same way this board is, because most of it is also on this board, but into community and local business needs. I think that I'm hopeful that we can collaboratively assign the responsibility to the Affordable Housing Trust Board to develop an RFP for submission to this board, subject to this board's approval, subject to this board's comments, subject to this board's disposition, however it sees fit. But I think that if we don't take advantage of the resources and the capabilities that are sitting over there at the Affordable Housing Trust Board, just to get something that can be put in front of this board for action, I think we're spinning our wheels. So it is my desire, and just for sake of discussion, I'm going to make a motion that the Affordable Housing Trust is requested to develop and present to this select board for its approval a comprehensive RFP for ownership housing development on the town-owned property at Stepping Stones Road.
I'll second.
With that, I'll open it up to discussion on the board. Yes, sir, Mr. Metters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make my comments very brief because I don't think this is going to be a prolonged conversation. I simply feel this is right now part of the responsibility of the 5 members of the sitting on the board. We hold a responsibility of sitting select board members. We have some duty to the voters who put us in office. It's, in respectfully, I spent 8 years on the planning board. I'm not a rookie. I have some, background that can add to the process. So, I'm not going to relinquish my responsibility. It would make my life a whole lot easier, trust me, if we didn't have to work on this. But, I've spent many years serving this town, planning board, select board. If, you feel like the select board needs an extra meeting to focus on this as the 5 of us, or a joint meeting with the trust, I'm willing to do another meeting down the road, but I can't, in good conscience, relinquish my responsibility that I feel that is on my shoulders at the time. So that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also am not in favor of granting this request. I've given my reasons in detail at previous meetings, so I'm not going to repeat them in detail tonight. I'll just go over a couple of highlights. Town meeting has placed control over Stepping Stones Road in the Select Board. The Affordable Housing Trust is not an attainable housing trust. Their jurisdiction is limited to affordable housing. If we were to 40B this property, then the Affordable Housing Trust and its funds could be brought in at that point. Obviously, with any development, density and design are issues of concern to the public. And I think we saw from the the Buckley property and the Meeting House Road property, that how the RFP is crafted predetermines the result that you're going to get in terms of responses to the request for proposals. So I prefer that the Select Board direct the Housing Director, who's going to draft the RFP anyway, to draft it at our initiative, and then we can submit it to the Affordable Housing Trust, as well as I think we should submit it to the Planning Board for comment and suggestions back to the Select Board for final issuance. So that's my position. I'll be voting no on the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Mike. I don't think we're abdicating our responsibility as elected Select Board members by asking the Affordable Housing Trust to craft the RFP. In fact, I think we're actually fulfilling our charge as Select Board members by handing off to a group that is perhaps has more specific talents than is represented on this board. Where I truly land is if the Select Board actually gets to approve the RFP, and maybe perhaps has a voice in its crafting along the way, because we know everybody on the Affordable Housing Trust, so we can actually have a conversation. If the RFP is brought back here and we are asked to approve it or not, then we have final say. So I'm very comfortable in asking what I believe to be a very talented board to weigh in and help us craft an RFP that will provide for attainable housing on stepping stones. Heartened to hear that we can solve the sewer problem there, or the sewer issue there, and this is doable. And I would look forward to their RFP, and I totally agree with Select Board Member Nicastro that the way the RFP is crafted perhaps will prompt certain responses, and I think we need to be careful and then be artful in terms of how that RFP is crafted, so that we do ultimately end up with a project that is attractive and is full of home ownership. So I'm not uncomfortable. I'm frankly comfortable in handing it off to a board that I think is extremely talented. Architects, land developers, real estate folks, lawyers, smart people that we appointed. So I frankly think I'm doing my job by so doing. And I get your points, but I do disagree, and I'll be voting in favor of it. Thanks.
Shireen?
Thanks, Mike. Jeff, you were very spot on in what you said, and I do agree that the Select Board still has control, even with charging the Affordable Housing Committee with looking at the project. It'll have final approval. It can ask the Planning Board to take a look at it. We have many ways, and the Community Housing Partnership should be having a hand at this too, to look at this and consider everything. And there'll still be a lengthy and robust discussion when it comes back to the Select Board. There's no doubt the last process, we had a lot of public engagement and leading up to that, and I'm pretty confident that that will happen with this property as well. We're all on sort of the, I believe we're on the same page of wanting home ownership as a driving factor to this property. We're all in a good place where we see it to be. So handing it off to the Affordable Housing Trust, who again has the expertise and has been voted by this committee, by this Select Board, as representatives to do this kind of work, I think is a good place for it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to add one thing, and then I'll open it up for public comment. I want to be clear. The motion is to ask another board of this town to do some homework for this board, and then to come back to us with the results of that homework. It is not to ask them to do anything in terms of fulfilling a responsibility that belongs or resides here on this board. That's number one. But more importantly, implicit in that, at least speaking for myself, when you come back with a recommendation, you have a responsibility to present the recommendation, present the results, but also to talk about and identify the considerations and the issues that have been let's say, have come out in the discussion of the development of that RFP. And so I think what we're doing here, what I'd like to think we are doing here, if we agree, is getting the benefit of an expert presentation that will inform you, Corey, as a former member of the planning board, and Dean and his experiences, with finance and legal, et cetera, as well as input from the community. But I think just to get the work done, it is important to have somebody who has the time, the expertise, and the focus to just do it. And so with that, I will open it up for public comment. Does Ms. Gibbs have her hand up? Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, thank you, Elaine Gibbs. During the presentation by the chair, I found it interesting that not once during the reasons given was the public even mentioned in terms of the ability of the public to participate. And I think tonight is a good example. When we were talking about public participation, I'm pleased that you said that we could comment now. But what I had recommended was that a presentation be made and then do what the Zoning Board of Appeals does, and you go to the public and hear their input before you make the decision. My comments tonight mean nothing. You've all weighed in, and we know how the vote's going to go. You have no respect for public opinion in this situation. The fact of the matter is Stepping Stones belongs to the town, and that means it belongs to the taxpayers, and that would be us. And we should have a right to participate during the process. This is premature. By the time RFPs are completed, and we saw it with Penrose, it was too late to make changes. I think you have an overriding sense of how much expertise you have on there. There are a lot of smart people in this town that actually have something to contribute. I don't think you are all, Mr. Dykens. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't talk while I'm speaking. I think it's premature and unnecessary for you to go forward without input from the town and from the public. The Affordable Housing Trust is notorious for not listening to public comment. The only place the public can participate is during the select board meetings. And it should come to us during various periods of time so we can comment. We have a right to see what the design is going to be, what the density is going to be, whether it's going to be ownership, workforce. By the time we saw it with Penrose, by the time the RFP is done, it is too late to make changes. And you're talking 6 months to a year, potentially, when that occurs. So we can do it right, or we can do it like we did with Penrose. I think you're going to find there were people that didn't think that was the right choice. I have a feeling based on the timing of Meeting House, you're going to find we're talking 3, 4, 5 years. That's what could happen here if it gets delayed. I think this is unnecessarily divisive. If you want to be collaborative and give the impression that there is transparency and you want public participation, I think you should not take this vote and you should move along and engage the select board and engage the public along the way. This has been going on, and I'm sorry, but one affordable housing trustee said that they were going to go around us, the public, or through us if necessary. And that's the attitude of the Affordable Housing Trust. No regard for public participation. It's our town too. We own the property. The select board is in control of it. Your mission is affordable housing. The select board's mission is for all the stakeholders within Chatham. They deal with budget issues and a lot of other things that will impact quality of life, for all kinds of things that you don't have to consider. So I think it would have been appropriate if you had gotten public comment before you already went on record. Perhaps I've changed someone's mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Oppenheim?
David Oppenheim. I am a member of the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm speaking for myself. I have to take issue with what was just said. I don't see where there's any cutting out of the public. We're going to have open meetings. The public's welcome to our meetings. Mr. Metters just said that he would like to participate because he does have expertise from the planning board. He's welcome at our meetings to contribute. It's my understanding that we've all, there's sort of, I don't want to speak for everybody, I feel there's a consensus that we want Stepping Stones Road to be home ownership. That would be the lead place. It's a great place to do it. At one point, we wanted to include 127. But that has specific issues and specific things that have popped up, and I think the board made a good decision to get those resolved so it doesn't complicate things. We have a shovel-ready piece of property on Stepping Stones Road, and to get a RFP done done through the Affordable Housing Trust, who was again voted 3 times at town meeting to take on the housing issues in this town. And the housing issues are not going away. We've got 2 things that are rental properties that have gone forward. We have a land develop agreement. Somebody may not like some of the things that were done there, and I would submit that probably there's nothing that we're ever going to do that everybody's going to like. But we are assigned to deal with the housing crisis. We don't have approval of this thing. All we're doing is working with the same person, Gloria, our housing person, to help us craft something that would be subject to the approval of this board. If it's not approved, it doesn't go out. So I don't know or understand where anybody is giving anything up. We're going to seek the meetings will be open for people to discuss. And to say we've been going behind people's backs is absolutely false. And as one of the members of the board, I resent the comments that were made by the previous speaker, and I'm not going to stand here and not defend ourselves. We've done a good job. The people have put a lot of time and effort into. We almost have full attendance at almost every meeting we have. We meet on a regular basis. Gloria's been enormously helpful. We got clarification from Rob Farley on something that was now knowing that we don't have to wait for the 5-year plan to go all the way down to Kroll Road. It's resolvable. In fact, the resolution of that would most likely be the technical resolution of the couple of issues that remain might be part of the RFP, so we might get more information. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of the creative people that maybe Hack or somebody that comes in with really good ideas that we can all discuss and figure out and move forward with this thing as quickly as possible. I'd love to see an RFP in a very short period of time. We do have the holidays coming up, so I think it's reasonable to assume we might be able to, if this is voted appropriately, we might be able to see an RFP maybe in the next 3 months and be able to have conversations about this thing. And I would love to see us be able to go to town meeting to fund something so we can get something built. As far as this misinformation that's constantly out there, we're hiding, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's just not true. It's open meetings, and you know something? Hardly anybody ever comes to the meetings. So if you want to come to the meeting, Mr. Metters, if this is voted appropriately, come to the meeting. Mr. DeCastro, if you want to come to the meetings and give your expertise, come to the meetings. That's what they're for. They're open. And then the RFP gets done, hopefully, and then we bring it back to this board, who has abdicated no responsibility whatsoever. It is subject to your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
Just for point of clarification, if this moves forward, I cannot attend and participate in the conversation because that would constitute a majority of the select board participating, and if I did so, it would potentially result in an open meeting violation. So by moving forward on this, it is restricted to the 2 members of the select board who also serve on the trust. Myself, Mr. Eikens, Mr. Nicastro would not be able to participate in these conversations by process.
Well, the point is well taken. I would have made it if you didn't. That said, I will say that your observations, your attendance online or whatever, coupled with comments, anything you want to submit is welcome. And there are avenues to get your input along the way if you desire or if you want to wait, but I will tell you that your input wherever, whenever, however is welcome. Yes, sir.
I just want to say that I don't report to the Affordable Housing Trust. I report to the people who elected me. I'm going to prefer to have your comments back to us rather than the other way around. I sit at this panel. I don't sit on any other committee in this town except the OPEB Trust. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there anybody else online?
No, I'm not sure if Elaine has her hand up.
Are you seeking a second opportunity, Ms. Gibbs?
No, I stand by my comments.
No, I'm not
regardless of what
asking
the
you to
previous
withdraw your
speaker said.
comments.
Thank you.
You have a hand still appearing on the screen.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I have no additional comments except to say I stand by my comments and disagree with the previous speaker's interpretation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor, Mr. Metters,
No.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Castro.
No.
Thank you. Next, we have a nomination for appointment to the Railroad Museum Committee. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move to appoint Richard Crasier as a member of the Railroad Museum Committee until June 30th, 2026, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Thank you. Jill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight I have some current items as well as the monthly report for September. So the first page is everything 'tis the season about budget. So I wanted to thank the Select Board, the Finance Committee, department heads, and the Monomoy Regional School Administration participating in our budget summit last week. It was really helpful for Carrie and I, and we look forward to presenting the budget as we move forward very soon. In case someone missed the budget summit, what I had also put in here are the goals of the summit as well as the outcomes, and all the information has been uploaded to Budget Central, including the Budget Summit video, all the slides, and all the documentation behind it. So that is here. And then early voting, as we had already said, is underway, and it is due to end on Friday, November 1st by 4 p.m., and it's over at 549 Main Street. And then another item here too is, I think it was a request for an agenda item, and what we thought we would do is put follow-up items from the Select Board on staff's progress. And so the first one that we're trying it out, and certainly could have a separate agenda item, is the Kate Gould Park electrical update. And so that was done during the week of October 7th. So everything should be powered up, stroll, band, and any combination of the above. But if you prefer to have an agenda report for these type of things, I'm certainly welcome to schedule.
No, as long as we haven't forgotten, I appreciate that, Jill, because I've raised it a couple times, and I'm appreciative that the work got done. It was needed, and so hopefully it'll be great next year, both for the band concerts and any other events like Shakespeare in the Park, et cetera. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Good, thank you.
And then, as usual, we have our Team Chatham Years of Service anniversary. This is for November, and we have our longest duration of an employee is Sue Roccanello, that most people know from the Harbor Masters Division. She's the Department Coordinator for Natural Resources. And then we have a few moving down to first-year anniversaries, which is amazing how quickly it's gone. We have Carrie Mazaral, Greg Berman, who's our Director of Natural Resources, Quinn Foreman, who's our superstar with the Cemetery Division, and Dana Grimm, who's our police dispatcher. And also in the report, we have a couple of pictures of people who have just started. One is Dave Caruso as a Chatham firefighter, paramedic. He's a transfer from the town of Yarmouth, so it's really excited to have someone lateral over to us who already has all the training. And then Joe Pagliaro has graduated from the academy as our newest police officer, and so you'll see him with the training officer doing their regular patrols and shifts. And then I know not everybody's on social media, but some people do download the agenda packet. Here's just a sampling of one of our recruitments for our Adult Day program assistants, and this is for the Riders Cove Respite Center that we're hoping to open within the next month once we get the available staffing for that. And then the Human Resources Department had wanted me to share that we're in active interviews for all of the other open positions. So great candidate pool, and hopefully make an appointment within the next couple of weeks. And those are all posted online as well. And then Kathy's idea to kind of spotlight various updates and as mostly as a table of contents. So for the project updates, you'll see those listed with the accompanying page number with this report. Couple last things, Chatham TV Productions, they're just doing really cool stuff. So I included the link with an interview with Diane Nash. She's our adult behavioral health community services clinician. And we also just finished some backstages with Ted on the dredge. And then Anna Mylon, she does a reading of the flash newsletter for the Council on Aging, but also has incorporated community service items such as what's going on in recreation. And she's also interviewed outreach coordinators and just really making it as a complete overview of community services. And that was a new department created a couple years ago. So we're really excited about that. You'll see our social media accounts are doing really well. A lot of increase people hitting it, as well as opening up the Main Sheet newsletter, which continues to be a really great source of communications, especially for people, again, who are not always on social media. So we get a lot of accolades for the newsletter, the Main Sheet, for which Shauna does the primary work on that. And then the rest is all of the department updates for September, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I don't have a question. I just want to say that two of the things, and I may have missed them. If I did, apologies. I thought the Supportive Adult Day program was not, I didn't see that mentioned in your spreadsheet of things that have happened pursuant to our goals and objectives and so forth. If I'm wrong about that, shame
No,
on
that's a
me,
really good
but,
point, because we did receive the grant, so
yeah,
yes.
and
that's a
I
great
think
add.
that, the other thing is the hiring of the community health clinicians. I thought that was something that might profitably be included as a, a step forward as well.
Great.
So, Jeff.
Phil, I've had some continued interest in what the open positions are, how long they've been posted, and how we're doing with them. And you do give mention to it, and that's great, but I wouldn't mind seeing, hey, these are the open positions, these is how long they've been posted, and this is what we're working on.
Sure.
Then I have a comment. I just want to let you know that my personal experience and my family's personal experience at the dump has been phenomenal. The staff there is great. Great attitude. They get it done. They're so pleasant. It's just, they really do deserve better digs down there. They really do. It's time. We got to do something down there, because you really have built a great staff down there.
Yes, they're our ambassadors. They get asked every question there is, and they really do great work. They pay attention to the monthly reports, so they're able to answer people's questions as well.
I mean, they're personable. They do answer questions. They're great. They're wonderful. They've been well trained. Someone's really taking good care.
Anybody else? I'll just I endorse that. It's great the people you run into at the dump, but you always have a nice conversation with one or two of the people that are there, passing the time of day or on some particular topic. It's a very enjoyable visit. It really is.
It is.
Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Castro.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:22. Thank you. Good night.